Hi, everybody. Welcome to Revitalise Meets, where I get the opportunity, as always, to meet entrepreneurs and business leaders from across the global business network. And today I've got the great pleasure to be with a gentleman who's got over 11 years experience in business and been doing his new venture for the last 18 months onwards. Can you please welcome with me the one, yes, but the only, Mr. Billy Smith of Onwards Answering. Billy, how are you today?
I'm very well, Lee, and I think it's important to comment that there is only one of me, and thank God for that.
Very true indeed. I'm very pleased there's only one of Billy Smith, I tell you, because I've got to knowing you a lot well over the last few years anyway. So thanks for joining us today for Revitalise Me. It's really appreciate it.
My
Uh,
pleasure.
I've been learning a lot about your business journey over the last few years that we've gotten to knowing each other. But would you mind sharing with everybody who's watching and listening today a little bit about your business journey so far?
Sure, sure, no problem at all. Thanks for asking the question.
No bother.
Um, in order to start, I'll explain where I am just now, but then get into the DeLorean and take a bit of a journey back, if that's okay. And that's a bit of a tester to see how old people are that are actually listening to this, if they know what the DeLorean is. So I sit here today as a qualified solicitor, as the owner of a law firm in Glasgow, and as the owner of a separate business that offers telephone answering services. So, how did I get to that point? Um, the Without taking the next 4 hours of your life, Lee, I genuinely remember when I was, I think, 5 or 6 years of age, on a very warm summer's day, my aunt's coming round, and at the time it was fairy cakes. We call them cupcakes now, that my mum had made, and I remember my aunt's leaving to the side, the holder, and I gathered them up, and I remember standing in my room. I don't know how I remember this, but I remember standing in my room and folding them into little fans and going back to my aunt's and selling them back to my aunt's for a penny. And that is my earliest recollection of business. I didn't know it at the time. And if I look through my early years and into my teenage years, I did things like that. I always had the biggest paper round. Whilst I was doing my paper round, I was delivering rolls and toy scone. I was always looking to establish, how can I make some money here in something that I enjoy doing, which was key. Um, when I left school, my mum recommended, I would say forced, me into getting a job. I ended up in a law firm and making tea, and that's where I got my first introduction of the law, and that's where I said, I think I can do this. Um, it was the law firm 4 years later, when I was 21, who sacked me, who held the door open and told me that I would never make it in the law. And that's the catalyst that made me so determined to become the lawyer that I now am. But what then happened next was key. I ended up in the car rental industry when I was 21 years of age, and that's where I first got a proper professional introduction to sales. And that's where I started to understand my desires, my interest in the building the little fans. But where did all that come from? And that's where I get proper training in sales. And I was in that industry for 7 years before I decided, I was studying law at the same time, trying to prove my original employers wrong. And I eventually went back into law in 2005. And by the time 2010 came around, I was, by way of the Law Society of Scotland's regulations, able to then set up my own business, which I did. Me, myself, my laptop, and my mobile phone. Married with 4 young children, a mortgage, and everything else. And 6 months I gave myself to make sure that it worked, and that was 11 years ago. We'll celebrate our next anniversary of the law firm in September of this year. So that's the number of highs and lows. During that journey, I have set up an estate agency, which didn't work, and I got a lot of learnings from. I have set up a separate law firm, that's Simplicity Legal Limited, and Simplicity Legal then merged with Complete Clarity Solicitors in 2016 to become Clarity Simplicity Limited. And yes, as you mentioned, I set up a telephone answering service in January of 2020. So that's been going for about 18 months now. And that service was born from the law firm, and what we felt to be a value added service that we could deliver to lots of businesses out there from the learnings that we've had at the law firm. And most importantly, answering phones for people whose business is fundamentally reliant on the phone getting answered to assist their sales process. So, I've just described the past 46 years of my life to you, I think, in a few minutes. But yes, that's been my very quick business journey.
It's been an interesting journey, and especially now that you've took on the telephone answering service as well as a
Yes.
business, especially doing it via over what we've been dealing with over the last sort of 18 months anyway. That's a challenge in itself of what you've achieved. What's been your biggest achievement year to date? I mean, I think you mentioned briefly about increasing a turnover to a really big amount with the law firm previously. Would you mind sharing a bit more light on that one, how that became one of the biggest achievements for your business?
Sure. The Sure. We exceeded at the tail end of last financial year, which was May 31st, 2020, and I have to say miraculously because of COVID, we exceeded the £1 million turnover for the first time in the life of the law firm. Now, turnover is one thing, profit is another. And I'm delighted to say that throughout every year of the law firm, the profit has been sustained. It's been sustained sufficient to allow dividends to be paid to the directors, and most importantly, allow me to do what I'm trying to achieve here. My why, if you like, is I want to look after my wife and my 4 kids and make sure that they get as best a chance in life as physically I can give them. And so if anybody asks me what my why is, then that's it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's great when you look at how you can get the benefits from that, not just for business, but also from a family perspective as well. Having that sort of time is so important that we're living in right about now as well. And
Yes.
looking at what we've done or what you've done over the last sort of 18 months, what's been the biggest way that you've adapted your business now to, as we're living in our little boxes on
Sure.
Zoom, embracing a virtual world? How have you adapted Clarity and, most importantly, onwards answering as well?
Sure. Well, clarity, simplicity first. I will never forget the decision that Emma King, my co-director at Clarity Simplicity, and I took, which was 1 week before Boris put us into lockdown last year, when we stood in front of the staff in the office that I'm in right now, and we said to them, pick up your laptops, go home, and I'm sure we'll be back in 2 or 3 weeks' time. We didn't know what was going to happen at that point, and that's the same for everybody. I just remember this kind of sense of fear, not knowing where are we heading to here. And I have to say, one of the biggest things that has guided us through the law firm, I've got to stress, one of the things that's guided us through was our decision in 2019 to appoint a finance director. That finance director, who I've got no trouble mentioning, his name's a guy called Chris O'Day, who is the chief executive officer of a business called the Cash Room Limited, based in Livingston. He was the life raft that we clung on to in order to guide the law firm through its most challenging of times last year. One of the biggest things that we learned was bricks and mortar. Prior to COVID, our business structure at Clarity Simplicity, or our strategy, was to get the business having a presence in every town and city in Scotland. And I remember sitting down with Chris a day just pre-COVID, and COVID was coming to be a thing, and we were talking about setting up in Edinburgh, and he was the one that said, I really think we need to place these thoughts on hold for the moment. So, but for COVID, we would have had an office in Edinburgh, and but for COVID, we would be moving ahead with other offices in Scotland right now. The biggest learning has been that we do not need bricks and mortar in order to run this business. And indeed, we don't need bricks and mortar to run Onwards Answering either. The staff at Onwards Answering are working remotely from their homes with telephone setups in their own homes, and I I still, don't get me wrong. Here I am sitting in office, and I think there is always going to be need for an element of bricks and mortar, but not the amount of bricks and mortar that we needed. Certainly pre-COVID. So that, if you would have said to me in April 2020, you will come out of this in April 2021 having sustained the same amount of profit. Okay, turnover is down, no question. But you've now got 2 offices instead of 3. You've now got 6 members of staff less than what you had last year. I honestly would have taken it every single day of the week, because of how unknown things were in April 2020.
Yeah. And I think as well, what you've done there and what you've mentioned there, I think is a really powerful point. It's the people that you've got around you. The circle of connections you got around, but also the team that you're working with, the team that works with you, is being the biggest foundation that you've got in your business in both areas, I guess.
Yeah, 100%. The team that we've, looking at Clarity Simplicity, the team that we've got right now is as strong as it has ever been. And the remarkable thing, we were just laughing about this the other day, I am yet to meet 2 members of my team, despite the fact that they have now worked for me for over 7 months. No, 9 months. And in fact, we were having a bit of a joke that a particular member of staff that on Zoom looks like a bit of a shorty is in fact, 5'8", 5'9". So we've got a great team. The Onwards Answering team is very strong. It's growing.
Good.
And it's growing constantly. In fact, we're currently looking for more people to join the team as it is at the moment. More clients are coming on board. More clients, I think, and I think this goes back to the bricks and mortar thing. I think people are now asking themselves, how can I diversify my business? How can I look at achieving the same objective in my business, but in a different way? And certainly with the amount of clients that we're taking on board right now, it would seem that that's a theme that's running through many business owners' minds right now.
I think it's that percentage that people are running the same, doing the same things, but it's right what you say. People are now looking at how to diversify it, maybe just change it up that 1% each time, which makes a big difference. A small percentage change makes a big difference with the business itself. And I think that's a really poignant part on there. Now, we've talked about team, we've talked about challenges, and what I would like to know now is that what would be your golden top 3 tips of advice to somebody out there? And we spoke about this quite a lot, and you actually did a speaking part at one of the early Revitalise business events about business resilience.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about keeping a hold, keeping pushing forward. What would be your advice to people out there? Your top 3 golden nuggets of advice to people out there?
I think first of all, if you've got it in your head that you want to have a go at a business, whatever that business is, give it a go. I'm a firm believer in. Well, the best way to describe this is that one of the opening chapters in one of the Tony Robbins books talks about you being in a room surrounded by people with curtains closed. And in fact, the reality is that you're actually in your coffin.
Wow.
And you're looking back and you're asking yourself, what do I regret or what don't I regret? And I think that for me is key. Don't have any regrets. Don't get to a certain stage in life, look back and say, I wish I had done. That for me has been that's been one of the fundamental things with running your own business. All of a sudden, nobody is there to stop you from doing what you want to do. You don't have a boss. Now, to be honest, that has its negatives as well. But for me, it's given me the free rein to have a go at the businesses that haven't been a success. I mentioned the estate agency, and have a go at other business. You know, I've got free rein here. So first, give it a go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. The second thing, and yes, thank you for mentioning the resilience part. When I set up on the 1st of September 2010 the law firm, I hadn't a clue what I was heading into. And that's from a retrospective view. I thought I knew what I was doing. I didn't. And I very, very quickly, and this you're quite right, ended up being, I think, a 10-15 minute presentation a couple of years ago to Revitalise. I quickly ended up in a very dark place. Fear got a hold of me. You know, it really got a hold of me. And I would say to anyone setting up their own business that fear is there. Everybody's got fear. It's part of being human.
Yeah.
But it's about how to, and again, this is another Tony Robbins thing. You know, it's about how to dance with your fear, and knowing your numbers in your business, because your numbers always tell you the answer. That's critical. That sort of thing. The other thing and the last thing to mention that has absolutely guided me through the past 11 years is something that I think a lot of people are probably aware of, but wonder if they implement all the time. And it's the Orbed principles. It's the above and below the line attitude. It's taking ownership, accountability, and responsibility for your actions, as opposed to blame, excuse, and denial. And yeah, we can all live our lives from time to time below the line, but I think if you want to be successful in business, you've got to be accountable. You've got to take ownership, and you know, you've got to be entirely responsible for everything you do. You won't always get it right, but don't blame other people. You know, always take responsibility is what I say.
Yeah. And they're really good 3 points there for anybody going into that. I think the biggest one is that fear that you talk about, you know, that second point is that people that hinders people back. It's have the confidence in yourself,
Yeah.
you know, believe in yourself, but you've also got to go through that fear, and you've got to have clarity on your experiences when you're traveling down your journey, because those experiences you're going to experience, right, is going to build you to the business person that you're going to be. So you have to go through them to get through to the other side some of the times.
You
And
do.
it's what makes you a lot stronger and gives you that resilience. So thank you so much for sharing that as well. And look forward to learning more about that as well. We talk about learnings, we talk about knowledge, we talk about people that we're speaking to, connections that we're talking to quite regularly. What have you learned yourself through either self-reflection, through training? We talked about a lot of different books like Tony Robbins, great books to have. But also, what have you learned from knowledge from others? I mean, would you be able to share that? Has it been a lot of self-reflection for yourself, Billy?
Oh, I think I self-reflect a lot. I think the older I get now, the more I self-reflect, and it probably does genuinely go back to that analogy of lying in your coffin, constantly self-reflecting, constantly asking yourself, are you ticking all the boxes that you want to tick? From a character perspective, I've learned a lot about business. Has taught me a lot about myself. I know now that, well, my mother always said I was very stubborn. I now appreciate that I am. I've learned a lot about my business. Has taught me a lot about my character. I know that I always want to push my foot to the floor, the accelerator to the floor, as much as I possibly can. And I know, therefore, that my character being like that, my character needs a bit of a yin and a yang. And now I maybe I'll have the yin, but I didn't have the yang. And that's where Emma comes in. Now I can't, chalk and cheese, black and white, two different characters you will rarely meet. And if you look at the two of us together and you listen to the two of us bickering as we do all the time, you would wonder why it works. It works because we are chalk and cheese, yin and yang.
Mm.
And the, the 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 success of the law firm is built upon the ability of, and Emma and I talk about this all the time. Whilst I'm pushing that accelerator, flat to the floor, she is hovering. We don't always say braking, but she's always hovering over the brake, and that's been key. That's been key in learning my character, to know that she's there, picking up the pieces as I drop them, because I do, and I accept that now. And if she's watching this, she'll probably have a wry smile on her face. But that's one of the things that I've absolutely learned. The knowledge that I've picked up in business, that for me is priceless. That knowledge in running a law firm, Lee, we are a regulated practice, and quite rightly so. Let me be clear on that. The Law Society of Scotland is there for a reason. Lawyers are expected to be very professional people, and they always should be. And therefore, as a result of being a lawyer and being regulated, it's not quite as easy to be the entrepreneur being regulated. It's not impossible at all. Again, above the line behaviour. But what my knowledge has given me in the law firm, I'm now able to take to onwards answering, which isn't a regulated business. Now, that's not to say that we're not a professional business, because we are, but it almost feels as though with onwards answering that the shackles are off a little bit, and that we can go and try things that 99.9% of other business owners do. So that's just but a few things that have come to mind.
I think knowledge is, like you say, you're correct in what you're saying, Billy. It's like the knowledge is key. But at the same point, I think a lot of people don't do that self-reflection enough for themselves, either weekly or monthly or however they want to do it, and taking time out from themselves and learning from others like Emma, and having that yin and yang or chalk and cheese that goes with it. You pick up things that you try. One of the big things you say there is just give it a go, try it, you'll learn from it. And it's taking time out to get more knowledge for yourself makes you, again, an even stronger business owner. Whereas then when you go into that next venture as an entrepreneur, like yourself, Billy, because you can class yourself as an entrepreneur, you go into another business option, you can use some of the tools and the knowledge and the people that you've picked up from into that where you haven't got those shackles. And you can go, do you know what? I'll give that a try, test and measure it, and see what works well. So thanks for sharing that. Really appreciate it.
Before we move on, Lee, and there's something that just came into my mind there, and I think it's important for anyone listening to this, anyone relatively new in business, or people who are in there for a long time and feel as though that they're on the hamster wheel. Because I felt that. Where are we now? 2021. So 2016, funnily enough, this is when Clarity Simplicity became. This is when we merged Complete Clarity Solicitors and Simplicity Legal. And again, I was driving to Kirkcaldy, and I was listening to another kind of self-help book. It was an audiobook, and I remember the chapter. I remember the chapter started speaking to me to say, and it always made this quote at the start of the chapter, and the quote was something along the lines of, "Every business requires clarity and simplicity." And I, honest to God, was about to come up to a bend in the road and nearly crashed the bloody car. And the chapter then went on to explain about needing time out of the business, right? And I remember phoning Emma and saying to Emma, it was a September day 2016, and I said, right, October, give me a week in October. She gave me a week, and I said, right, clear the diary. And so she was a break, and she said, what are you doing? What are you doing? I says, you and I are taking a week out of the business to tear this business apart and put it back together again. It took me maybe a bit of time to convince her, and we now call that week Strategy Week.
Good.
And we do that Strategy Week twice a year, where we literally take ourselves out of the business and sit and talk about what what are we here to achieve, where do we want to go, let's talk about goal setting, and I would implore anyone in business who doesn't do that to give themselves that, even if it's a day. Please don't do half a day, because that just doesn't work, you know. So get yourself out of the business and strategize about your business.
That's a really good tip to anybody out there who's just starting up, who's just going out on their first journey on it. Taking time out. A day is needed, even if it's once a week, a day, just to reflect on it.
Yep.
But guarantee you've got to put that in there. That's a great shout out there, Billy. Well and truly. What's the next step for you? What's around the corner for Onwards Answering? What's the next piece of the puzzle for Clarity Simplicity? What's next for you, Mr. Billy Smith?
Yeah. Onwards Answering is at its I wouldn't say it's at its embryonic stage, but it's not desperately far away from that. It's building. I genuinely believe that Onwards Answering, insofar as it being a telephone answering service right now, Em and I are very clear that we are looking to build on that, and Emma's already come up with the brand Onwards Plus, and we're looking at the fact that at the law firm we've got what we call a back office, where secretaries will do typing, people will answer calls, all the back office stuff that goes on in a law firm, which we have. And I've got to give kudos to Emma. The back office at Clarity Simplicity is a well-oiled machine. And so Emma and I are saying, well, can we bring that theme into Onwards, and can we create an Onwards Plus? Can we say to businesses, not only will we answer your phones, but we will also be your back office, and allow you to go and do what you want in your business and deliver the product. So that's where Onwards is being driven to. It really excites me. Again, I'll go back to the fact that it's a non-regulated business, so really excites me. Insofar as Clarity Simplicity is concerned, that is absolutely without question the mothership. It's at the stage right now where we've got 12 solicitors, we've got 6 at last count non-solicitors, and so we've got a great team who are driving that business forward. And it is allowing Emma and I to work on that business as opposed to in that business. We definitely want to expand into the towns and cities that we talked about earlier on. We probably won't do that with bricks and mortar. We are looking to actively attract people into this business who maybe are sitting in the Aberdeens and the Edinburghs and the Invernesses of this world, who are solicitors and are looking for the next opportunity. Can you work remotely from Edinburgh, Inverness? Of course you can. How do you meet with clients? Well, there's this wonderful thing called Zoom that none of us in March 2020 thought was ever possible to run a business through, and wow. So the future's bright. Again, I'll go back to my why. The kids are getting older. One's about to leave to go down to London in her journey. So I'm about half a tick on, she's okay. Provided I'm always contributing towards the why, that's where I'm happy. And my playground, so to speak, is the 2 businesses, and being able to do what I want to do with them. So I hope that answered your question.
It does indeed. It shows that there's a lot going on next, and I think you've got some great services and many things to offer many people aboard spectrum. And I think you talk about the power of Zoom. People last March going, wow, we've got to embrace this, and they're going, I'm not going to embrace it too much. The ones that have actually seen the power that it's given to everybody in opening up the geography across the globe.
Oh yeah.
You can speak to someone in the States, Canada, across everywhere in Europe if you wish to. It's opened up many opportunities via the power of Zoom, and like we're talking today. But I think it just gives you that chance to expand that
Yep.
brand, and expand that knowledge even further. So
Yep.
there's some great things happening, and I'm over the moon for you, especially seeing how it's progressed since we met each other
Thank you.
over sort of 3 years ago to where it is now. Absolutely superb. And again, I wish you and Emma and the whole team at Clarity and onwards the successes that you deserve, well and truly, Billy. So thank you for that. Everybody's watching and listening today. How can they make contact with you, Billy? How can they organize a virtual cup of coffee with yourself? What's the best way of getting in touch with you?
At the risk of saying through all the usual means, I'm on LinkedIn. Connect up with me. I am happy for anyone to email me at any one of the. So, best email address is billy@onwardsanswering.co.uk. I am available pretty much via that. I'm not sure whether it's correct to mention my mobile number in this, but I'm happy to do so. You tell me.
Yeah.
Happy to be connected to my mobile, no trouble with that. 07916 285 686. And can I just say, that's not for me to sell my services to you. I love speaking to business owners of any vintage. I love learning from ones that are, so much, more of a vintage than I am. And I love speaking to those that are just starting out in business, and hopefully giving them little bits of nuggets that I've learned over the way. So, love to speak to people on that front. Look, if business comes of it, business comes of it. That's great, but it's very much secondary. So through any of those means, I'd be happy to be contacted, Lee. I hope that was the answer you were looking for.
It certainly is. And I would encourage anybody who's watching and listening today to reach out to Billy and find out not just about his business, but about the advice, because he's been a great asset to me in my business journey for the last 3 years. He's been absolutely superb in regards to the advice that he's given to me. Has been golden. So make that contact, organize that time, put the virtual kettle on, and most importantly, start the conversation, because you'll be very surprised, as I mentioned quite a lot, the opportunities of collaboration and synergy you'll find in just having that 10 to 15-minute conversation. It does open up many, many doors that you may not be aware of. And the key of everything we spoke about today is the key of building up those strong business relationships, which don't just happen overnight. They take time to build and produce. So Billy, thank you so much for being along today. I really appreciate your time and your expertise that you've shared with everybody from your business journey. Thank you so much.
My absolute pleasure. Thanks, Lee.
And thank you to you all for watching and for listening today to the Revitalise Meets. Stay tuned for more Revitalise Meets coming very soon, where I get the chance, as always, to meet business entrepreneurs, business leaders, and key influencers from across the global network of business. Stay healthy, keep well, and as always, remember everybody, keep connecting. Take care. Bye-bye for now.